That'll teach him not to underestimate us. We've got further to go before we reach the sword and Old Man Willow.
Marigold spoke wisely. It would be easy to get ahead of ourselves. With Gulmuk defeated, the path toward Old Man Willow and the cursed sword lay a little clearer, but would still be a trial in its own right. Even so, I felt proud of our small fellowship. We had done well in defeating the towering troll, and I had performed my new role well. My confidence in my own abilities grew, as did my faith in my companions. My ability to draw the enemy's attention to myself would be far less effective were my allies not capable of dealing at least a consistent amount of damage. Wading through the refreshingly cool Withywindle River only rejuvenated our spirits momentarily. Once out, our wet clothes clung to us, heavy and burdensome, while the stifling warmth and pressing fog of the old forest renewed its assault with grim tenacity. We resolved to root out any further shades who might be adding to this suffocating environment. Thus, we followed the paths which filled us most with dread. Between us and them stood more tree trolls and creeping roots. They swung raking, brittle limbs like branches caught in a tempest, while heavy gnarled legs thudded down with the weight of felled timber. Poison seeped toward every open wound, and roots erupted from the complacent earth, striking from below. All this sought to hinder our progress, chipping at our resolve. But before long, we found another of the dreaded shades, and a lessening of the gloom lay within reach. With our experience in fighting these enemies only increasing, we made short work of the Shades and their guardians. The presence of two of them hardly matched our surging courage, and we were soon able to feel another small gust of wind stir the humid soup of air. From there, we were left to navigate the labyrinthine pathways either cleared by the trolls or permitted to exist by the trees, in search of more shades. After hacking our way to the next group of ritualists, I quickly found myself entirely overwhelmed. Grasping roots had tied me to the ground before, but now it was used in combination with a roar of wildfire. Surrounded by tree trolls, bombarded with magic, there I truly realized the extent of Marigold's influence. While fire raged around me and blows rained on me, I knew in that moment that my death was almost a certainty. As the rush of blood pounded in my ears and a darkness closed around my vision, the only thing I could clearly hear was Marigold's fiery determination. A constant onslaught of encouraging words tumbled from her mouth, and the belief she impressed on me of our success and my worthiness battled fiercely against the enemy's sapping effects on my morale and strength. It may have been the only thing that kept me going. With my senses restored and the next pair of spirits destroyed, we crossed the Withywindle and were met again by another splitting of ways. Looking upstream, we could see a guarded path which Marigold knew led to Old Man Willow. However, an ominous weight could still be felt from two other trails. Guessing that more shades lay in wait, we decided to remove them first. Anything we could do to decrease the external malign influence on our spirit would benefit us when we came close to the cursed sword. I wanted to be as prepared as possible before facing that. Scores of stubborn tree trolls and irritating roots now lay in wait. After my revelation concerning Marigold, it was now impossible to not notice her importance. Her stream of encouragement, her enthusiasm for the completion of the task at hand, and her revelry in our adventure, despite the hideous circumstances, was infectious. Whatever sickness lay upon this forest was continually pestered by her beaming hope. As we found one spirit after another, all of my self-confidence and strength was reframed with vital context. I had done well in our fight with Gulmuk, had excelled in keeping the enemy's attention on me, but I now realized that I could not have withstood much without Marigold. Humphrey and I had done so much for the Bree-land, faced countless enemies and unveiled numerous plots and evil alliances all on our own. I was awed at Marigold's ability, but this gave rise to a gnawing doubt. As we slew more and more of the enemy, it was becoming clear that Humphrey and I alone would not have been able to deal with the evil in the Old Forest. What would I do in the future? I could not rely on Marigold. Brave though she was, would she wish to accompany us further than even Bree? For the first time since I had left Archet, I doubted that I would be able to right all the problems that I faced without help, which raised a great problem in itself. I had met many fine, sturdy and skilled warriors already, but they all belonged somewhere and wished not to leave their post. I was a wanderer, ready to follow evil wherever it led, and as such, it would be difficult to find others like me, almost impossible. Who would wish to sacrifice so much for possibly so little? Once again, Marigold's shouts returned me to the present. Perhaps she would accompany me, or perhaps not. Either way, she was here now, and so were Humphrey and I. A cursed sword had to be destroyed, trolls to be slain, and Old Man Willow to be tamed. With the last spirits vanquished, we all felt a significant pressure release. Faint stirrings of wind rustled the tips of the ever-watchful trees, and the woods began to feel like an ancient and dense forest. Still somewhat claustrophobic, but not quite all-consuming. Even the knowledge that we had done all we could so far was an easing of our burden. Only a handful of trolls lay between us and Old Man Willow, and we marched our way through them, our minds already occupied with thoughts of the final threat. Old Man Willow commanded a large open area of the old forest. The surrounding trees knew to keep their distance out of respect or fear. Even the break in the canopy offered little reprieve. The area was indeed illuminated by it, but the air here was still thick and stifling, and it felt as if the sun dared not impose itself on a terrain that was not rightfully its own. Here, we allowed ourselves a brief moment of rest, only to catch our breath and formulate a plan. For the first time, I acknowledged all of our skills and abilities. I would not simply charge in believing that the victory would be ours. I weighed Marigold's strengths against my own, and together we anticipated what was to come. Tom Bombadil had told us that the blade was here, and we were already aware of its pull on the evil spirits from the Barrow Downs. Destroying it seemed our most likely route to victory. I was concerned, however, that Shades would come to protect it, and decided I would draw their attention, giving Marigold the opportunity to focus all her attacks on the cursed metal, while supporting us all with her encouraging battle cries and shouts.
I don't like the look of that sword one bit, and I don't think we ought to touch it either. But if we strike it with everything we've got, even iron has to break. Let's bring the forest back to normal.
As we drew closer, the relic became visible, an evil-looking thing. It seemed to draw fell magic from the air around it, and the earth that it pierced. It was no wonder that Old Man Willow's song had become more treacherous of late, with it so close by. With the end of the forest's corruption in sight, we struck. The dark weapon was enormous, towering even over me. We swung our weapons in a frenzy, each making almost imperceptible marks on the black metal. Each strike felt as if it were returned twofold through my arm and into my shoulder. The throbbing pain was nearly unbearable, and I was actually relieved to hear the anticipated cries of spirits as they swarmed us, seeking to protect their lure. Our plan was quickly put into action. Marigold's faith in me never wavered, and throughout the entirety of the fight, she never once ceased her unrelenting blows on the steel, trusting me to protect her back. The spirits, though, were not as mindless as we had hoped, or perhaps the cunning blade acted through them. While I dealt with those that swarmed us, two held back, launching volleys of pure dread and despair at us. After those in the melee were dealt with, I had to waste valuable time wading through waist-high water to deal with those further back. Then we renewed our onslaught on the relic, and with a clearer idea of what we were facing, I first felt Old Man Willow's involvement as he periodically swung his great branches onto our heads. Unfortunately, there was next to nothing we could do about him, so we had to suffer or duck under the blows. Either way, our momentum was slowed. It was not long before another wave of the spirits assaulted us, and the pattern of this fight revealed itself. It fell to Humphrey and me to keep their attention when they arrived. As if that were not enough, we had to kill them as quickly as we could. Marigold absorbed the weapon's violent backlash with every strike of her club. Her cries of courage and valor already came through gritted teeth, and in the brief glimpses that I could make out her expression, a look of contorted pain dominated it. Her small stature next to the imposing monstrosity did well to hide her from the Willow's sweeping limbs, but I could tell that she could not keep this up for long. So it was our duty to waste as little time with the spirits as possible. The sooner they died, the more time the two of us would have in sharing Marigold's brutal burden, adding our own nicks and dents into the wretched steel before yet more spirits appeared. As if the sword itself had become aware of these facts too, I suddenly felt its chilling influence on me. While standing amidst the roiling energy that surrounded it, I felt my legs severely weaken and numb. The spirits that held back then became twice as difficult to deal with. When I marched toward them, my legs refused to obey perfectly. I felt as though in a dream where one cannot outrun a great threat, their legs feeling stuck in muck or mire. Our progress was hampered yet again. When I was next able to focus my efforts on the blade, I saw a trickle of blood running from Marigold's mouth as she spat out a part of her cracked tooth, one unable to withstand her vice-like grimace. Thankfully though, all of the enemy's tricks had now been unveiled. It was now a question of who could endure more, the Black Steel or us. Effort, the three of us rent the black blade in twain.
Yes, one more strike, together. What?
But nothing happened. The top half remained, floating several inches above the now separated bottom, and nothing changed. The purple magic still swirled around it, thickening at the broken portion, seemingly holding it together. What were we to do? We could not strike at these wisps. The steel was broken, we had pushed ourselves to our absolute limits, and it had not worked. In frustration and trembling pain, Marigold rushed off to fight the spirits behind us, and I was left hopeless, uselessly flailing a much dented and damaged spear at nothing. Then, just as we were at our greatest peril of losing complete faith, when the might of evil seemed unstoppable, a force for good was sent our way.
Hey doll, merry doll.
Isn't that...
Old grey willow man, mind you your mischief. Go now back to sleep, and don't be awaking. Ha ha! Thorn nor sword, Tom sees no difference.
I learn something new about my friend Tom every day. Well, never mind. It's time we went home and gave the Bounders good news.
We had done enough. Tom Bombadil sang the restless old man Willow back into a deep sleep, but more importantly, he was able to sever and halt the evil energy at the point where we had first broken the blade. Once done, the dark metal crumbled into dust, and was blown away by the first substantial gust of wind to enter this hidden glade in a long while. Marigold's lively disposition was miraculously returned, and her grimace of pain immediately transformed into her usual cheerful smile, now completed with a missing tooth. With the forest cleansed, now all there was to do was return to Sheriff Hob Haywood. Our elation did much to stave off the disquiet of Humphrey and I's lingering doubts. At our parting with Marigold, I inquired of her future intentions. As we had guessed, she was not willing to leave Buckland entirely, worrying that what we might face outside of Bree-land would surpass her, and so we were left to our tricky predicament. Leaving the tangled woods, however, helped clarify my thoughts. The light of the sun always made hope come easier, and the sight of the freed lands bolstered our spirits. We had done much on our own, yet our time here was not wholly complete. If more such difficult tasks lay ahead, it was equally likely that other companions would be found near them. But overall, it was a shame to say goodbye to Marigold. She had taught me much, and even though we shared such a short time together, the three of us left as good friends.
What do you need?
Hob was fittingly impressed by the recounting of our adventure in the forest, and rightfully vowed to keep his bounder's eyes more sharply focused on possible threats. Now, our own attention returned to the comparatively mundane delivery of Hodrick Bracegirdle's medicinal salve to Bruna Stoutthrush and his decidedly shady business dealings. But before doing so, one more thing still disturbed my thoughts. Gulmuk's mention of this Thadur and how he would see either the March of Angmar succeed or the trolls conquer the old forest. As the evil sword had attracted spirits from the Barrow-downs, and Gulmuk did not appear to be from there, I wondered if this Thadur was. We had already made one excursion into Othrongroth, but I now worried whether there were portions we had missed. It was in the same direction, so I decided to check on the undead activity among those haunted hills. If it were not at all diminished, it might prove that there was still more to be done there. What I had feared was immediately confirmed. The hills still swarmed with wights and bar guests. When I scouted Dead Man's Perch, I found some brave soldiers still remaining, keeping watch on the borders, making sure that the dead did not spill out. Edith Sweetrose, who had previously convinced me to seek out a legendary treasure for the ill-fated Addie Wheatley, had much on her mind. I did not intend to root out the source of the evil just now, but was happy to keep the swarming monsters in check. Edith had valuable designs for metalsmithing in her possession, discovered here, and the possibility of strengthening my armor further was tantalizing.
Stay a moment.
Bar guests were rumored to have the capability of striking a traveler down with a single gaze, so she wished for their eyes.
Would you do something for me?
Relics of Cardalin were ever present, and always fetched a high price in Bree. Guaranteeing the guard and town had vital gold for its defense was of great import to me.
Could I speak with you a moment?
Finally, the more wights I could defeat while here, the safer everyone else would be. She wished only for their skulls as proof. Humphrey and I welcomed the practice, but it was no more exciting than that. Before long, shattered fragments of bone and the viscera of bar guests were strewn all over the southern Barrow-downs, and I was already looking forward to the metalsmithing that was to come.
How can I be of service? Greetings. What do you need?
Our journey to Bree was paused briefly, however, when we discovered the deceased body of an unknown man. The man had clearly come from the direction of the Barrow-downs, and a note that he still clutched mentioned their western border. Another letter was from Bob, directed toward Barlaman, the innkeeper of the Prancing Pony. It mentioned a worsening situation with Bob's daughter and spoke with despair of a sundered expedition. I was confident this all concerned the young girl Lalia, whom I had already saved, but I needed to verify. Thankfully, this was correct.
Good day.
I wasn't sure why Bob was still here after all I had done to arrange their escape, and he made little sense to me, but I supposed I had probably done things in the wrong order. After another stretch astride Wally, I was back within the secure hedge and walls of Bree. The towering trees I had become used to were replaced by sturdy houses, and the treacherous, rooted ground was once again uniform cobbles, reassuringly steadfast. Bruna had changed, however.
What do you need?
Any pretense of kindliness and concern had completely fallen away. Ungrateful and ever focused on himself, he was intensely disappointed with my lateness, and worried that Cartwell had already found a new supplier. One could only hope. My experience in the old forest and the immensity of the evil we had faced there reminded me of duties previously pushed aside. Both Tobold Leafcutter
Would you do something for me?
and Bob Redthistle
Stay a moment.
had asked me to delve again into the Great Barrow. The first for chalices that he thought might aid in the protection against wights, and the second to slay as many undead as I could find. Perhaps there, within the heart of the Barrow Downs, I would also uncover the source of its corruption. Alas, Tobold had been stern in his recommendation that Humphrey and I not go alone, and since our adventure with Marigold, I was inclined to agree. She had been vital in our fight with Gulmuk. If this Thadur really did reside within that dark tomb, we would need help. He had seemed the senior partner in their alliance, one with possibly more power and almost certainly greater knowledge. However, ever pressing on my mind were the wishes of Gandalf and the maleficence arising in the Lone Lands. I was meant to speak with Cyrodian, a ranger who knew more of the matter, and I was troubled that he was still awaiting me. Yet, I also wondered if this ranger could lend us aid, or at least point us towards someone that could. He dwelt further north of Bree, an area I had not yet been able to explore. Further opportunities for Humphrey and me to embolden Bree-land lay ahead, and hopefully, new allies.